At dawn, the road to Rikera Correctional Facility looks almost peaceful. Mist rolls over the cracked asphalt, and birds perch on the barbed wire that crowns the high gray walls. Yet behind those walls, peace is a stranger. The silence that lingers there is not calm. It is heavy, the kind that carries pain, secrets, and forgotten names. Rikera sits on the outskirts of the city, near the old quarry road where trucks rarely pass anymore. The buildings are stained with time, peeling paint, broken windows patched with cardboard, and metal doors that creak like old bones. A faint smell of disinfectant drifts through the morning air, trying and failing to mask the odor of overcrowded rooms and human exhaustion. The warders arrive before sunrise, their boots echoing sharply on the wet ground. Inside, women are already awake. They've learned that the best way to survive is to wake before the noise, to find a few quiet minutes before the shouting begins. Among them is Amina, a 29-year-old mother of two. She was a street vendor before she landed here, accused of stealing a customer's phone during an argument she couldn't win. She insists she's innocent, but that hardly matters anymore. The court process was quick, the legal aid overworked, and within weeks she found herself wearing a faded prison uniform and saying goodbye to her children at the gate. "I thought I would explain, that someone would listen," she recalls softly. But nobody did. Amina's story is not unique at Rikera. More than half of the inmates are awaiting trial. Women who haven't even been convicted, but who remain locked up because they can't afford bail or bribes. Some have been waiting for years, their files lost in dusty cabinets or forgotten in the chaos of bureaucracy. Then there's Ngozi, who worked as a housemaid. Her employer's child got sick, and she was accused of witchcraft. She has been at Rikera for 9 months without a single court date. Her eyes have grown dim, but her voice still carries a quiet strength. "When I came here, I used to cry every night. Now I just sit and listen. There are women here who gave birth inside this place, and the babies know no other world but these walls." The prison itself tells its own story. The main block was built in the 1970s for 50 women, but today it holds more than 200. Mattresses are scarce, so some women sleep on old cardboard, others on bare cement. The walls are damp, and when it rains, the roof leaks like a sieve. Mosquitoes hum through the night, and the sound of coughing never stops. The guards, too, are weary. Most are underpaid, overworked, and desensitized. A few show kindness, a smile, an extra minute of conversation, a secret favor like passing a letter to a loved one. But others use their power cruelly, venting frustration on the inmates. Verbal abuse is common, and physical punishment is not unheard of. Yet amid the cruelty, a strange kind of order holds. The women have formed their own hierarchy. Older inmates, called mamas, keep the peace among younger ones. They mediate disputes, share food, and sometimes sneak out a bit of soap for someone who has none. In a place where everything is controlled, solidarity becomes survival. Rikera also houses mothers with infants. The small nursery block is nothing more than a dim room with cracked walls, a few cots, and fading murals of cartoon animals. Babies crawl on the concrete floor, their cries blending with the clang of metal doors. The women care for them the best they can, but formula is scarce and diapers are a privilege. These children are innocent inmates, born behind bars, growing up with no idea of the sky beyond the walls. Outside, society barely remembers Rikera exists. Government reports list it as functional. Visitors are rare, and journalists are often denied access. Donations come only at Christmas, when politicians want photographs. The rest of the year, the women are invisible. The chaplain, an elderly woman named Sister Miriam, visits once a week. She brings old Bibles and quiet encouragement. "They are forgotten by men," she says, "but not by God." Yet even faith is fragile here. Some inmates no longer pray. They say the heavens are too far above the prison walls. When night falls, the prison hums with restlessness. The power cuts out, plunging the cells into darkness. The women lie close, whispering stories to keep fear at bay. Someone hums a lullaby. Another murmurs about her village, her children, her dreams. A few weep silently, covering their faces with thin blankets. From the outside, Rikera looks like a fortress of discipline. But inside, it's a graveyard of voices, women buried alive by a system that calls itself justice. Each inmate carries a story that no one bothers to hear. Their names don't make the news. Their pain doesn't fill headlines. Still, somewhere deep within those walls, a spark remains, fragile, flickering, but real. Hope. It survives in secret letters smuggled out through sympathetic guards. It lives in whispered prayers and the determination of a few who refuse to let despair become their destiny. Rikera is more than a prison. It is a mirror. It reflects how society punishes not just crime, but poverty, womanhood, and survival itself. Behind those gates of silence are not monsters, but mothers, sisters, and daughters, all waiting to be seen again. Morning in Rikera begins not with sunlight, but with the clang of metal. A loud bang on the cell door. "Wake up! Line up!" echoes through the narrow corridor. The women stir from their mats, still half asleep. The cell smells of sweat and soap water, bodies pressed too close for comfort. There's no clock, but the inmates know the time by the sound of footsteps. The first set means morning count, the second means water. Every bucket is precious. The taps in the courtyard run only twice a day, and when the whistle blows, women rush out with plastic containers, an unspoken race against scarcity. Amina is already on her feet. She ties her headscarf tightly and joins the line. The warder on duty, a short man with a hard stare, shouts names from a tattered register. Some women answer weakly, others are too ill to speak. The nurse, Grace, walks among them with a small bag of medicine, painkillers, bandages, and hope stretched thin. Breakfast follows, if it can be called that. A ladle of watery porridge served in metal bowls. The women sit in small groups, eating slowly, speaking in low tones. Conversations are about everything and nothing. A court date that might come soon, a dream someone had about her child, the rumor that an NGO may visit next month. Hope, here, is often disguised as gossip. By mid-morning, work begins. Those in the sewing workshop take up their needles, stitching prison uniforms under the supervision of a matron. Others sweep the compound or wash the laundry of senior officers. A few work in the kitchen, stirring large pots of beans over open fire. The smoke burns their eyes, but at least it's a way to stay busy, and sometimes, to sneak an extra spoonful of food. Amina works in the tailoring room. She used to sew dresses in the market before her arrest, and now her hands move automatically. Stitch, fold, tie, repeat. She doesn't speak much. Her thoughts wander often to her children. She hasn't heard from them in months. The last letter she wrote never reached them. The guard who used to deliver messages was transferred, and now her words are lost in the cracks of bureaucracy. In another corner of the yard, Ngozi sits on a low stool, braiding another inmate's hair. It's her small way of earning favor, a trade that helps her survive. Her fingers are quick, her face calm. But beneath that calm lies fear. A new inmate told her that her case file may have been misplaced. Misplaced, a word that means another year behind bars, waiting for a court that never calls her name. His sun climbs high, and the yard turns into a furnace. The women shade their faces with scraps of cloth. One of them faints. Two others help her to the side, fanning her with an old newspaper until she wakes. No one rushes to the infirmary. Everyone knows the nurse has little to offer. Inside the cells, it's worse. The heat sits like a weight on their chests. The air smells of damp clothes and unwashed skin. Some women suffer infections from poor hygiene. Others bleed silently, with no sanitary pads, using torn pieces of cloth to manage their pain. Yet, even in these moments, a quiet strength flows through them. They console, they share, they endure. Every Wednesday, the prison allows a short, open yard period, 1 hour where inmates can move freely, talk, or sing under minimal supervision. It's the most awaited time of the week. Today, the yard hums with energy. A group of women forms a small circle, clapping hands in rhythm. They sing a song about freedom, voices blending in sorrow and defiance. Amina joins them hesitantly at first, then louder, her voice trembling but clear. Ngozi laughs for the first time in weeks. For that single hour, the walls of Rikera feel less heavy. When the whistle blows again, silence falls instantly. They return to their cells like shadows retreating from light. Evening brings a different rhythm. Some inmates pray, their voices rising in soft unison. Others whisper stories of the outside, of rain on rooftops, of street markets, of children running barefoot through sand. Memories are their escape tunnels. The older women talk about forgiveness. "We must not let bitterness eat us," says Mama Esther, a grandmother serving a life sentence for defending herself from an abusive husband. The younger ones listen, though they don't always understand. Some are too angry, too broken to forgive anyone. Sometimes, at night, the sound of crying fills the block, soft, muffled sobs that blend into the darkness. Other nights, the silence is so deep that even breathing feels loud. Among the inmates are a few pregnant women. Their bellies grow under faded uniforms, their faces weary yet hopeful. They know childbirth here is risky. The small clinic has no proper beds, no midwife, no emergency equipment. Many pray their labor will happen during the day when the nurse is present. One of them, Ruth, is 7 months pregnant. She was arrested for smuggling stolen goods she never knew were hidden in her bus seat. Her husband abandoned her the week after her arrest. Still, she talks to her unborn baby every night. "You will see the sky," she whispers. "Not just these walls." By midnight, the prison is cloaked in darkness. The generator stopped long ago, and only moonlight filters through the bars. Somewhere, rats scurry across the floor. The women lie close to one another, sharing warmth. Amina closes her eyes and listens, to breathing, to whispers, to the sound of her heart refusing to give up. Outside, the world sleeps. Inside, time crawls. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months. Yet the women of Rikera endure, not because they are strong, but because they have no choice. Their resilience is not loud. It's quiet, like a heartbeat. It's in the way they share water when it's scarce, in the songs they sing under watchful eyes, in the way they still speak of tomorrow even when today is unbearable. Life behind the walls is not just about punishment. It's about invisibility. These women have become ghosts to society, erased by systems that never cared to remember them. But every name whispered in the darkness, every story shared in secret, is proof that they still exist. And somewhere deep within Rikera, beneath the cracks of despair, a silent revolution brews, the will to live, the will to be seen again. The morning that begins like every other at Rikera soon turns out different. The sky above the compound is streaked with pale gold, and a cool wind moves through the open yard. The women feel it on their skin and whisper to one another. Change, even if small, is rare here. A warder walks briskly across the field, a stack of files in his hand. "Court summons," they say. It's a word that carries both hope and dread. Hope, because it means the system remembers them for a moment. Dread, because that remembrance often leads back to the same gray walls. Among the names called is Amina's. Her heart skips. She hadn't expected it. Her case had been quiet for months, buried in the silence of paperwork. Now, suddenly, there is movement. The other women cheer softly, some clapping, others patting her back. In Rikera, one woman's small victory feels like everyone's. Before she leaves, Amina walks to the nursery block. There, Ruth rocks her newborn daughter, a tiny thing with bright eyes and fragile limbs. Born only 2 weeks ago, the baby sleeps in a cardboard box lined with a donated blanket. She smiles even in her sleep, Ruth says, smiling herself. Maybe she dreams of outside. Amina bends, touches the baby's hand, and whispers, "You will not know this place. You will know freedom." Then she steps out through the gate for the first time in 2 years, not as a free woman, but as one temporarily borrowed by the world beyond. Inside Rikera, life moves on. Ngozi leads a group cleaning the courtyard. She hums a gospel tune under her breath, her hands soaked in soapy water. She has no court date yet, no lawyer to call, but she cleans as if wiping away her sorrow. For her, small acts of order are a rebellion against the chaos that imprisoned her. At midday, the chaplain, Sister Miriam, arrives carrying a box of donated books. The women gather around her, hungry not just for reading material, but for presence. She begins with a prayer, her voice trembling but firm. "Lord, let these women remember that even in chains, the soul is free." Some bow their heads. Others simply listen. Ruth sits in the back, her baby against her chest. The sound of Sister Miriam's voice mingles with the wind, a sound that feels almost sacred amid so much decay. By late afternoon, news spreads. Amina's case has been dismissed. Insufficient evidence. The words echo through the prison like a sudden rainfall after drought. When she returns, escorted through the gate to collect her belongings, the women cheer quietly. Even the guards smile. Freedom, however rare, is contagious. Amina looks thinner, older, but her eyes burn bright. She hugs Ngozi tightly. "I'll come back for you," she whispers. Ngozi nods, though she has heard those promises before. Still, something in Amina's voice makes her believe it this time. Before leaving, Amina turns back and looks at the compound, the cracked walls, the rusted bars, the women waving from behind them. For a moment, she feels both free and guilty. So many faces remain behind, etched into her memory like scars. She knows freedom, for her, will always carry their shadows. Outside Rikera, the city feels unreal. The noise, the colors, the people who rush by without knowing what lies only a few kilometers away. The world seems wide again, but it no longer feels the same. She walks through the crowded streets and realizes how invisible the prison is, how the forgotten inmates remain just that, forgotten. Back inside, night descends. The cells grow dark. The women settle on their mats, whispering about Amina's release as though telling a fairy tale. Hope has returned, fragile, flickering, but alive. Ngozi lies awake, staring at the ceiling. She imagines herself walking through the same gate, breathing the same free air. She imagines visiting her village again, hugging her mother, hearing her name without the word prisoner after it. For the first time in months, she allows herself to dream. Meanwhile, in the small office near the gate, Sister Miriam writes a letter to the prison authorities, pleading for more attention to the women's welfare. She writes about the lack of sanitary supplies, the overcrowded cells, the forgotten case files. She knows the letter may end up ignored like the others, but she writes anyway. Some fights, she believes, are worth losing repeatedly. A soft rain begins to fall. The roof leaks in the same corners it always has. The women scramble to move their mats, laughing as they dodge the drops. Even misery has its moments of humor. Ruth rocks her baby and hums softly, the melody of survival. Morning returns, and so does routine. Yet something has shifted. The women move with a lighter rhythm, talk a bit more, sing louder during chores. Hope, once a stranger, now walks among them in silence. Months pass. A few more women get trial dates. One even receives a reduced sentence. The sewing room becomes a place of whispered plans, ideas for life after Rikera, dreams of small businesses, of seeing their children again. Each thread they stitch into the fabric feels like a thread toward tomorrow. One afternoon, a journalist is finally allowed inside. She speaks to Sister Miriam, to the matron, and to a few inmates. Her article, published weeks later, carries the headline, "The Forgotten Women of Rikera, Prisoners of a System That Lost Its Soul." The world takes notice, briefly. A local NGO sends donations. Politicians visit for photographs. The women receive new mattresses, soap, and sanitary pads. But soon, the attention fades. The world moves on, as it always does. Still, the change, however temporary, matters. For the first time, the women feel seen. And sometimes, being seen is the first step toward being free. Years later, outside the city, Amina starts a small tailoring shop. She calls it Rikera Designs. The name surprises her customers, but she keeps it as a reminder of where she came from and of those still behind. Every month, she sends small parcels to the prison: fabric, thread, baby clothes, soap. One day, a letter arrives from Ngozi. It's short and trembling in handwriting. "Amina, I am out. I am free. Thank you for remembering." Amina reads it twice, tears blurring the ink. She looks out at the sunset, the same golden hue that once shone over the walls of Rikera. Freedom, she realizes, isn't just walking out of a gate. It's carrying the voices of those who never stopped believing. Rikera still stands, its walls cracked but unbroken. The women still sing, still hope, still endure. And somewhere within that fortress of pain, there are echoes, echoes of laughter, of prayer, of defiance, of dreams that refuse to die. They are not forgotten anymore. They are remembered in stories, in whispers, in the resilience of every woman who survived the silence. Rikera was their prison, but it also became their proof that even in chains, the human spirit can still rise.